All right, Krystal, what's on your radar?
Well, imagine thinking that this was a problem. Look at the some 17,000 people who showed up to see Bernie in Tacoma last night. Folks, that is what a winning movement looks like. And yet, cynical actors from the mainstream media to culinary union leadership to Joe Biden are all trying to turn Bernie Sanders' greatest strength, his massive appeal, into a weakness. I'm talking, of course, about the dumb Bernie bro attacks on Sanders supporters, which continue to be resurfaced with increasing desperation as Bernie racks up wins and marches upwards in the polls. The latest entry into this sad category is, of course, our resident democracy-crushing oligarch, Mike Bloomberg. He went sharply negative on Bernie with this new ad.
It is vitally important for those of us who hold different views to be able to engage in a civil discourse.
So first of all, does Bloomberg really want to talk about harassment? No, seriously. Does he really want to have a conversation about harassment? Because I know at least 64 women who are ready to have that conversation. Is the guy who once allegedly told an expectant mother at his company to kill it and reportedly told another working mother having trouble finding a nanny that it's an effing baby, all you need is some black who doesn't even have to speak English to rescue it from a burning building? In another reported comment, he told the women at his company that the Bloomberg machine would put a lot of them out of business because it does everything, including oral sex. Charming. Now, the tweets from alleged Bernie supporters in that ad don't come anywhere close to the kind of abuse that Bloomberg apparently heaped with regularity on the women in particular who worked at his company. Of course, though, it's obvious just how cynical and ultimately pathetic a move this really is. Bloomberg isn't running on his values. What values would that be anyway? Opportunism? Institutionalized racism? Veneration of the plutonomy? Listen, if you think Michael Bloomberg cares one bit about how kind people are to each other on Twitter, I've got a pre-presidential announcement stop and frisk apology to sell you. Bloomberg is trying to smear Bernie's entire movement and, by extension, Bernie himself for the same bad faith reasons as everyone else. First, they tried just ignoring Bernie, leaving him out of the political conversation altogether, but that didn't work. They tried to write his political obituary after his heart attack, but he just came back stronger than ever. They tried to attack him on Medicare for All, but it has only made him the most trusted candidate on the issues and especially on health care. They tried to say that nobody liked him, but he is still consistently rated as the most popular Democratic candidate. They tried to pull the electability fire alarm, but recent polls have shown that the public completely ignored those tired warnings, as Bernie has in fact surged to the top on the question of who would beat Trump. Pretending like winning is the new losing in Iowa and New Hampshire hasn't exactly worked out either, so what are they left with? When you've got a guy who is surging, who's trusted, well-liked, viewed as electable, with the most popular policy positions, well, if you can't go after him directly, then all that's left is to go after the people who support him. Now, honestly, this sort of attack is the lowest of the low. It is meant to tar the millions of working-class people and young people who have passionately dedicated their time and sent in 10 or 20 bucks as toxic and beyond the pale. It's also a throwback to the disingenuous attacks on Bernie back in 2016 when everyone pretended to be so concerned about the diversity of his base. By talking about Bernie bros, we're all supposed to assume that Bernie is only supported by a bunch of white male trolls, thus invisibilizing the many non-white, non-male supporters of the movement. I guess the other alternative is that they're playing into a long and ugly history of demonizing black and brown people as harassers or thugs. Frankly, neither seems like a particularly good place to be. The good news, though, is that when you have to resort to attacking the voters themselves, you're losing. Just ask the HRC team about how well her deplorables comment worked down, or you could ask Kamala how well it played for her when she insinuated that Democratic primary voters were too racist and sexist to back her. Or you could ask all the pundits and elected officials who repeatedly sold the idea that the only problem with their Russiagate and impeachment tactics was just that the public was too dumb to understand concepts like obstruction of justice. Here's the other good news for Bernie backers. Never forget the truth. that any one of these politicians would die to have a movement of passionate, engaged supporters behind them. First of all, while every non-billionaire campaign is running around the country trying to scrounge up money and unable to know what their budget is and unable to fund the ads and the infrastructure that they need in Super Tuesday, the Sanders team has this behind them. Millions of small-dollar recurring donors who just build and build every single corner. It says everything that while Biden and Bernie have both been spending time in Colorado, one spent all his time sucking up to rich people and not speaking to voters at all, the other was able to stage a massive rally of nearly 12,000 people. In what universe is that a bad thing? Second, here's Politico on Bernie's odds in Nevada this week. Advisors to 3 rival campaigns privately conceded over the weekend that the best anyone else could hope for here is second or third. Some of them gape at the crowd sizes at Sanders events, like the swarm of supporters who accompanied Sanders, his fist raised, to an early caucus site in Las Vegas on Saturday, the first day of early voting in the state. Swarm of supporters, that sounds terrible, sounds toxic. Finally, and maybe most directly related to this idea of online harassment, consider the events that unfolded with the Culinary Union. Now, the union leaders were never going to endorse Bernie and seemed determined to do whatever they could to undermine his chances in Nevada. But they stopped short of doing the one thing that actually could have blunted Bernie's momentum in the state, making an endorsement. Why? Well, of course, we can't know for sure, but quickly after the union began circulating anti-Medicare for All talking points, rank-and-file members who were Bernie supporters began circulating their own petition in support of Medicare for All. It became clear that if the union endorsed against Bernie, they would face a very real and very public backlash from their own membership. Now, most people really want to avoid confrontation. It wouldn't surprise me in the least if union leadership decided it just wasn't worth it. I guess Bernie bros to the rescue there. Supporters of Bernie have been wondering what the establishment would throw at them should it become clear that Bernie could win. If these tired, transparent, recycled attacks are the best that the billionaire and the media and the dumb establishment can throw at them, they should be feeling pretty darn good. And Sagar, the other thing I would say, there's increasing speculation about a brokered convention and what would happen if Bernie gets a plurality but not a majority. And the fact that his supporters are so clearly committed to him makes it less likely that the Dem establishment will try to pull. I'm not saying that they won't, but it does make it less likely.
It's just that the media does not understand mass movements. And none of these candidates, others, seem to either. We talked about this before, but I can't understand the attitude of people who are going to demonize millions of people who support a candidate in totally good faith and not try to win them over, only for the sole kind of craven media strategy that Bloomberg is going through. And it's like you said, behind the scenes, they'll all admit it privately. They're like, man, I wish I could draw crowd sizes like that.
Of course.
Oh man, Bernie's going to win Nevada. It just goes to show that once you start going after the voters, it's the most pathetic and it's actually the weakest place to be. In terms of the broker convention, I think you're right, which is that they're going to have to, I remember the discussion up to Trump, which is they realized it was because the same thing was happening. It's that major Republican organizations were basically trying to back other candidates other than Trump or try and swing it away from him.
Right.
And their actual members were like, no.
You can't.
That's not going to happen. And it was that actually which stopped any real momentum at the convention from trying to swing it away from Trump when they realized, when the leaders had to realize that the voters themselves were with Trump, is that they had to back down. We'll see if that happens with the Democratic convention.
Well, and it's a go-to move at this point of the Democratic establishment to blame voters for various problems, right? Like the reason that we have Trump is because of racism and sexism, right? The reason why the Russiagate stuff didn't stick is because voters were too dumb and too
they didn't listen,
now.
They didn't hear it,
right? And then the whole idea that voters stayed home and didn't back Hillary Clinton, that's never put on her.
No.
It's put on the voters, right? No, you have to go out and make the case and give people a reason to come out and vote. You can already see this dynamic playing out with Bloomberg. For those people who have come out and said, look, Bloomberg is a bridge too far. I'm not vote blue no matter who. You have to give me a reason to vote for you. Those people are being relentlessly attacked. It's not their fault. Give them a decent choice that they can vote for. Is that too much to ask?
No, it's not. And it's people should go read this. There was an interview with a black voter in Milwaukee after the election. He was just like,
great.
He's like, not only did I not vote, I don't care that I didn't vote and that Trump won.
Don't regret it.
He doesn't regret it at all.
Yeah.
You have to give people a reason.
That's not his fault. It's yours.
Exactly.
Next up on Rising, HuffPost political reporter Dan Marins is going to give us his Nevada debate and caucus preview. That is next.